We're live. Just trying to get this light here figured out so you can see me a bit. It's kind of dark in here. I'm Steve Crawford. This is Factor Theory Live. I am playing around with this mainly because trying to figure out the YouTube studio because, as you know, Facebook sucks. Even YouTube likes to block and take down my videos and stuff. But today I want to talk about the web matrix and a site called thewebmatrix.net. That's a friend of mine, Dan Willis. He was part of the Disclosure Project with Stephen Greer. Sorry, Dr. Steven Greer. And he was also involved in doing research. If you go to his site, you'll be able to check it out, and his YouTube page. He was involved in zero point energy a lot. He would travel different places in the world, and they were even running for their lives, so to speak, at one point. Because they were threatened about this technology. And why? Because the Invention Suppression Act, I believe it was somewhere between 53 and 58, that act came out shortly after the death of Nikola Tesla, who, as who, as a lot of people know, if you don't know who Tesla is, stop this, come back later, or after this, go check out a video on Tesla. The things he created, he was probably the first known in this day and age anyway. Anyway, you can see me now. First known in this day and age anyway, to come up with the free energy idea. He created radio. Marconi was given credit for it. It was proven Marconi couldn't create his radio without some of Tesla's tech, so the credit wound up going to Tesla. The whole reason I found out about Nikola Tesla was a band came out in the late 80s, early 90s called Tesla. And I always thought it was an odd band, but I loved their song, Modern Day Cowboy. I started getting at Little Susie. They had some great stuff. Check them out. Tesla, the band, when you get a chance. But when I find, for the longest time, I wouldn't even go, I wouldn't even go on a computer. When I finally got a computer, I wouldn't go on YouTube for years, just refused. And finally got on it, started looking, seeing all the old videos I loved, all the bands and stuff like that. And there was Tesla. And I'm like, wait a minute, I wonder if YouTube's got anything on Tesla. And at this point, I didn't know that they had all kinds of cool videos with info about that kind of stuff. So I just typed it in, and up comes an autobiography about Nikola Tesla, and blew my mind as I'm watching it. Gets to a part about a device. He had a handheld device that he had put down and turned on. A battery he invented or something, and it started a building swaying, started a mini earthquake in that block, and people were losing their minds, and he had to turn it off and take off. If this guy was capable of something like that 100 years ago, the government wanted every scrap of paper they could find. Most of his stuff was in his head, memorized. This guy would create something, build it, fix it, rebuild it in his mind before he even put it to paper. That's how meticulous he was. He spoke, I think it was 11 languages or maybe 14. He spoke a lot of languages. He was born at the stroke of midnight during a thunderstorm. His mother was an inventor. Some people think he was an alien. That they sent him to us to figure out all this stuff because they could see we were going with the nuclear. Even he didn't want nothing to do with it. He knew about the nuclear. He was asked to be involved in that. I think he was initially there when the project started, and then decided, no, this is lunacy, and left. He was also made the very first, because of his free energy, he was made the very first bad guy in the very first bad Superman cartoon. He was the evil mad scientist with his death ray that was going to destroy the world. That's how much they knew about this guy back then. So taking into, and I'm going somewhere with this, taking all of that into account about Tesla. This is documented fact about Tesla that you can go check out yourself on YouTube, or there's Netflix even has documentaries about him. So I'm not making this up. This is real. And that's how it gets into everything I talk about with UFOs and time travel and long distance communication, wireless communication. Tesla, he kind of shot himself in the foot when he came out. He was smarter than everybody back then. All these people, the rich people, they weren't super intelligent. They were good with business, but they didn't understand science and the world around us and the universe, and that there are no laws when it comes to anything. They're all theories. Theory of relativity, theory of gravity. All of this stuff is theory. And even himself, he would do things over and over until he could get them right. He would laugh at Thomas Edison because he'd watch Thomas Edison try to build a hammer using a toothpick and a thumbtack to see if it would work, and he'd fail over and over and over. And Edison would even say, I didn't fail 1,000 times. I found 1,000 ways not to do something. Or, just that kind of stupid. Edison was a fool who stole people's inventions and just he fucked Tesla so bad. Sorry, that's why I get stammering. I get thinking about the pictures. Tesla came out with AC motor, and this is all leading back to the web matrix. Tesla came out with the AC motor and showed it to Edison, and Edison nearly shit his pants and laughed it off. And that's when Westinghouse came into the picture, found out about the patents, bought them, offered Tesla an enormously obscene amount of money to make it all happen. And Tesla didn't care about the money. He wasn't watching that part about it. He was all about the science. And that's basically what fucked him. He said, and shot himself in the foot, back to that he had made contact with some alien race, or at least received some sort of signal from a different civilization. And everybody laughed him, just laughed him out of society, essentially. And how can the fact that he was able to do all the things he was able to do, he wasn't just a theorist, he was a practical application scientist, theoretical physicist, inventor, jack of all trades, hardworking man. He just didn't care about money, and that's what fucked him. And that's what fucked us. That's why we're all now totally, completely screwed for our future. Let's see here. Is this the volume? For our future, and we're stuck on gasoline, petrol, and the banking system and all of this stuff because they took over. They took all of his information. If they took his information, I also believe he designed something that I call Project Looking Glass. And I nearly shit my pants. I watched the Joe Rogan podcast with Bob Lazar, and Bob didn't really want to talk about these guys. He was being prodded by the producer of the documentary for Netflix that Bob did. I think it's called Bob Lazar Area 51 and UFOs. Check it out if you get the chance. It's interesting. But also check out this podcast because Bob brought up things that I had never heard him say before. I'd never heard anybody say before. And one of the words he had said, one of the key phrases he had said was Project Looking Glass. My jaw dropped and 3 drops of pee came out. And I was like, wait a minute, what are you talking about? And he was talking about intentional distortions in time. that could be created. And he goes, as a weapon. Well, not as a weapon. Well, yeah, actually, it was part of a weapons program. And then Joe had cut him off and got to something else. And how could the intentional distortion, time field distortion, be used as a weapon? You would use it as a viewing mechanism, like Alice through the looking glass. You would look through, you would be able to see any person, every point in history, if you got good enough at it, at adjusting the frequencies, because everything is frequency, and if you got good enough at adjusting these frequencies, you'd be able to zoom in, home in on the people who were going to be problems to you in your timeline, your desired timeline in the future, and you could either shoot them or ruin them so that nobody has a chance to, nobody will take them seriously. And I seriously believe that's part of what has been going on. And that goes back to Tesla. I believe they got that technology when he died. They got all of the stuff that he had hidden. They took it, came up with that Invention Suppression Act so that if anybody else in the public tries to come up with something similar to that Tesla had already come up with in his mind, they could come in, take it from you, threaten you with jail time, and then they can take your invention and utilize it. And there's nothing you can do about it. So I think it is possible. You hear that they had these ships, that we actually had ships in the 20s and 30s even. And that would coincide. Well, how could we have them back then if the Roswell crash didn't even happen until the what was it, 47, in the 40s or something? I've had concussions, so my memory comes and goes. But how could that be? And that, see, and I just lost my train of thought of that. But because that was around the time Tesla was creating all these incredible things and dealing with the government and the military and trying to be a patriot and come up with ways that he could help his new adoptive country win their wars. And that's how I believe that came to be. That's how they possibly, allegedly, had ships ready to go in the 30s. Tesla allegedly sent, he had created something. We don't know what it was. We don't know what it was. And he had divided the pieces up and sent them to different countries: Russia, Germany, USA, Canada, Britain, that kind of stuff. And the idea was to get us all to work together, build this thing, see what a great world we could have, and maybe stop all the wars and stuff. But that didn't happen. And allegedly, we had outside help, or at least the Germans had outside help from, what did they call themselves? They were from Zeta Reticuli, I believe. But the supposed Aryan race, the Nordic-looking aliens. And if they had help from these aliens and they had that Tesla stuff, they most likely also managed, because they had a lot of sympathizers in Britain and the US and Canada. Germany did. Don't fool yourselves. They had a lot of sympathizers. The British family is German. Their name was Saxe-Coburg, so they were German. So they would have been able to get at least a few more pieces of the puzzle. So what if they put it together, and they were those De Glock and those ships we saw that you see pictures of with the little Nazi swastika? What if that really could have happened? What if we really could have had these ships back then, and Admiral Byrd really was chased away from Antarctica and attacked by these ships from the Third Reich, starting up the Fourth Reich? And that comes back to the web matrix and my friend Dan Willis, because he has spent so much time and effort compiling evidence from, and the stories from from like 1900, 1933, 1947, 54. You can go to his site, thewebmatrix.net, if you want to do that on your own time to see everything. But I'm going to start from the beginning and give you the little lowdown here on Dan. He's a really, really great guy. So Dan Willis is one of the Disclosure Project's top secret military witnesses. He testified at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C. in 2001 in front of every major media outlet. A world disclosure event which was asking for congressional hearing in order to bring forth witness scientists within the black projects who could release the technologies derived from extraterrestrial reverse engineering that had been hidden for over 70 years, even more than that. But over 70 years that could stop further damage to our planet, but instead the message was sanitized by a controlled mainstream media. And we know that's what they do. They're all one-sided. They have been infiltrated by the CIA. I think that Dan even gets into this on his page here, and he spent, geez, I would imagine months putting all this together. From his personal first-hand experience, as well as looking into the historical indicators that have been purposely omitted from our education system, which reveal an infiltration of unwarranted influence operating behind the secrecy established for our national security system, a system that is used to control the public's indoctrination that forms their perception of the agreed upon reality. This is done in order to hide their illegal operations and why they fear disclosing the truth about the extraterrestrial reality. Now, as an ex-radio broadcast engineer and an ABC newsman, Dan had taken a keen interest in how the mainstream media has withheld disclosure of the full message to the public, a message based on hundreds of credible military and intelligence witness testimonies. The following articles reflect on this question: who controls the agreed upon reality through the mainstream media, and why they fear disclosing the truth about the extraterrestrial reality? To answer this question, of course, you must ultimately decide. Does this stuff resonate with you at all? Does it sound like the government could be we all know the government has hidden things from us. Clinton hid his blowjob, for crying out loud. He wouldn't admit it. I mean, come on. Or maybe that was the one part he did admit. We all know that politics and conspiracies go hand in hand. I get so many complaints on my Facebook pages. I have two of them. I have the Conspiracy Factor Theory and Factor Theory Live. And I'll get people going, oh, this is too political on here. Politics is nothing but conspiracy. That's all it's about. But the hiding of UFOs is being done by politicians and the military. So how does politics have nothing to do with conspiracies? The Clinton family and Hillary Clinton doing all the murders they've gotten away with, getting child molesters, this is all documented stuff. It's just not out in the mainstream media, because the mainstream media is owned by the liberal Democrats who want people like the Obamas and the Clintons out there telling you to shop and dance and listen to your favorite celebrities and rock stars. And maybe Donald Trump's not the greatest president, or person in the world, but he's a damn sight better than any president we have had in the last, probably since Reagan, at least. He's also disillusioned. He's got the same bad people giving him bad advice. His daughter married an Israeli, so the chances are that guy chances are that I can't say for sure one way or another that Jared guy is a Zionist. But I do know that Trump loves America. He's not racist. The guy got an award. There's a picture of him with Muhammad Ali, Rosa Parks, and was it Malcolm X or something, or like people like that. These are the people he was employing and stuff. He's ruthless in business. People say he's a businessman. He has no business running a country. The United States is a corporation, people. What do you even look at the Civil War? I've been watching it, the Frank Burns version of it. It was all about war. You hear uh, things about the British and French saying that they should go over and intervene. And what it was is they're trying to intervene in their corporation. The United States was a corporation. It was fighting all the stuff, the goods that the Europeans were waiting for from the American corporation were being burned. The Democrat Confederates that were the slave owners, yes, they were the Democrats that were the slave owners. They were burning the cotton that Europe wanted. And so for some reason, Europe said, oh, we must intervene. Well, these guys fought for their independence from Europe, right? And they won it, allegedly. So why would Europe have any say in what happens in America? Because America is just a subsidiary of the British Empire's business. Yes, that's right. You're not a free country. America, you are still ruled by Britain, by the Queen. That's why all the presidents, that girl who did the family tree for the presidents, all but one or two were related to, I think, was it King Edward or King George? That it's all a subsidiary. That's what it's all about. Okay, so now back to Dan's articles. This article, which I wrote back in the beginning of 2014, was primarily written to help further my own understanding. I'm speaking as Dan, of course, now, of what I have had experienced and become involved with. To understand the perception matrix we are currently in, one needs to look back chronologically through history to see what events have brought us to today's world. Now, several years later, many more revealing and collaborating indicators have surfaced. Give greater picture to this hidden reality. So essentially, this article has turned into my online notepad, taking notes of events, new whistleblower testimonies, up to current date, to simply share with others who are seeking patterns and connections of these indicators that reveal the bigger picture, the bigger hidden picture. And I hope these shared notes, which I am continually updating, fill in for those who have also noticed the glitches in the perception matrix and are doing their own research to learn the truth for themselves, because that's really what you have to do. You, we can sit here and tell Dan can tell you things, Stephen Greer can tell you things, everybody can tell you all they want. It doesn't matter if it doesn't resonate as a semblance of truth within you. You're not going to believe it. You have to experience something. You have to catch something. I didn't believe in ghosts until I saw one, right? I didn't believe in UFOs until I saw one. I didn't believe in missing time. I thought that whole abduction thing was a little cuckoo, and all the new age stuff even. But now, as I'm getting older and I'm understanding more and more about what's being done to us, how we're being injected, how we're being cut off from source, from the ethos, from the ether. Uh, Look up the ether and what that's about. Nikola Tesla even stated, science is never going to make any significant leaps or bounds until they start to study the ether. The ether is part of space. Space is not a vacuum. It can't be. Why? Because we have radio telescopes and we are getting sounds from space. There is no sound in a vacuum. So mainstream scientists, Bill Nye, I challenge you. Neil deGrasse Tyson, I challenge you. Explain this to the world. How can space be a vacuum with no sound, and yet we can hear what Saturn sounds like, the rings of Saturn, and we have all these radio telescopes. How many billions of dollars have been spent on these radio telescopes to listen to a vacuum. Uh, does that make sense to anyone? I know I think there's maybe one person watching right now, but you get where I'm going, right? So space is either a vacuum which no sound can be heard through, which means you're wasting millions and millions and billions of dollars on technology that is not going to be useful at all. That is why Seth Soshak's one of my friends, unless he actually deleted me. But Stanton Friedman used to make fun of them a lot. SETI, uh, I can't remember the words he made up to go with SETI, but it was essentially searching for something that you're not going to find because if space is a vacuum and there's no sound. You see where I'm going, and then you get the people that go, we're in a dome and there's water above us and water below us, and people say that's impossible and everything. Well, then I see things, they're starting to talk about fluidic space. So what if we are actually in space cannot be a vacuum? Why? We are not in a vacuum. We are in a pressurized system. A pressurized system cannot exist alongside an unpressurized system without a barrier. That is simple science. Bill Nye, Neil deGrasse Tyson, explain that to me alone. If you ask these guys what gravity is, they'll say, I don't know. Next question. They don't even try to say, well, it has a lot to do with buoyancy and density, because that's what it is. If something's lighter than the air, it's going to float. If it's heavier than the air, it's going to go down. So if a planet going by us is lighter than us, it's going to get drawn into us, or vice versa. You know where I'm going. So explain that to me. The only explanation would be some form of barrier, which would be this firmament, right? Now I'm just being theoretical here, so I don't want people going, oh my god, this guy's a loon, blah blah blah. These are theories and conspiracies. Since when is it against the law or make anybody a lunatic just to think out loud? Just to postulate. I wonder if. Is it possible that this is what Einstein did, and most people revere him? This is what Newton did. They weren't experts. They were experimenting. They were theorizing. There are no laws. Everything is theory until it can be proven otherwise. And as far as space goes, honestly, we can't prove anything. NASA, the word itself means to deceive, and if we have to take their obvious CGI videos as fact, then that car in space, the Tesla car, and buddy, what I can't even remember what's his name now. Elon Musk. Oh, it's real because it looks so fake. I mean, it's just insane. Okay, back to Dan. This article would not have been written if it wasn't for a request from a media company out of Hollywood that contacted Dan in 2014. They believed he'd be a good candidate to write an article for them regarding media control in regards to the UFO ET matter being discussed, being a disclosure witness, as well as an ex-ABC newsman who happened to have had a number of first-hand experiences dealing with the mainstream media, purposely sanitizing out critically important information before it could reach public awareness. And that happens all the time. It still does. When you watch a news story, you're only getting one side. You need to picture the other side, then read between the lines, and there's your truth. Okay, so seeing this as an excellent opportunity, if for nothing else, but to answer his own mind, to answer in his own mind this question by learning how and why this came to be, he accepted it. So, not being a ufologist or a historian, but simply a witness, and not even an experienced article writer, he says, "Bear with me," and I say, "Bear with me," because I'm trying to learn to speak again. Blah, 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 blah. Uh, this is his first attempt to write something like this. He needed to get historically up to speed and educated, so he sought out to study a number of reputable sources outside of mainstream, what people would call these days fake news, even though it's not. The fake news would call it fake news. Um, so for historical education, okay. Uh, So he sought to study a number of reputable sources outside the mainstream historical education we're taught in school for the core of the information connected to the witnesses' testimonies, leaked, authenticated, classified documents, supplementing this with his own few firsthand experiences and adding various collaborating mosaic pieces to this hidden puzzle in an attempt to see if history can show a number of indicators and or patterns that could possibly point in the direction to answer this question. He was already aware of the various testimonies of hundreds of military and intelligence witnesses that he joined and collaborated for the project Disclosure Project. As he began to research back through time, it became quite apparent that everything we were indoctrinated to believe about the history of this world through our education system and media were severely altered or incomplete at best, if not flat out lies. I'm embellishing and adding some of my own stuff to Dan's words. And I shouldn't have done that because then I lost my place. Okay, these glitches in our worldview are linked directly to the cognitive dissonance people are experiencing, whereas the created perception matrix, which is not based completely on truth, always has leaks of contrary information from multiple sources that continually indicate otherwise. Many people love science fiction because it stimulates, expands our imagination as to what could be possible in the future. And it's kind of like they want to shut that down on us now. They don't want us thinking about what we could create and what we could be. The things, if we were told everything and put Tesla on a pedestal instead of Edison, our kids, would know languages from different planets and such. Um, what Dan discovered is that the actual hidden truth of this subject matter is far more fascinating than any science fiction movie could ever possibly imagine. While being extremely fascinating, it is at the same time potentially disturbing as to what the truth indicates. No one wants to share with others the information that is potentially disturbing, yet it's important to know the truth, as the truth does empower us to be able to make better decisions based on the real rather than which is deceptively false, thus allowing us to be empowered to more effectively transform our reality for the better. Because as history has shown, sometimes when you don't know, what you don't know can impact you negatively. The purpose of this article is to share awareness toward empowerment, not fear. We need to educate ourselves because we're not going to get it from TV. They'll put 20% of truth of these things into a TV show or a movie or a cartoon, just so it's out there, or on page 94 of the back little tiny article of a paper, of your newspaper. Sorry, my coffee's getting cold. I had to start drinking it. All right. Okay, so as pieces filled in and the article continued getting longer and longer, he decided in order to share this non-edited raw version of the article by converting it to an online format that you see here, that I see. I don't know how to flip the screens yet. They don't let me do all that fancy stuff that other people do. Uh, Okay, it is continually being expanded upon as he does ongoing research to attempt to fill it in a more complete picture. There are others, many others across the web that have done a great amount of research who are also connecting these pieces together from their perspectives to help understand what's been hidden from all of humanity. Well, not all of humanity. Some of them have the truth and they just want to keep it because power, knowledge is power. If we have the same power they do, they got nothing over us and they can't treat us like peasants. Uh, Interestingly, the more deeply people research into the more research into this matter from many various perspectives are coming to similar conclusions. Each honest perspective is valuable, as no one person has all the answers. That's a fact. I get so mad when I hear people saying, "There's this." I've done it myself. Period. No, there is no period. You don't know anything for a fact unless you were there and experienced it. You don't know the Bible for a fact, and unless you were sitting there watching God with His hand write it down. You don't know. Period. Okay. Now where was I? Um, all this information is, of course, available to anyone who's inclined to research. It's on the internet. You can find it, just like Dan did. Those that do are contributing to this collective goal, this collective global awakening to the truth, which is hidden in plain sight. And that's why people don't believe it. Because why would they put it in plain sight? Because they can. Because you won't believe it. And they know you won't believe it. And they laugh about it. They laugh and laugh. They watch you on, what is it, Black Friday, when the day before Thanksgiving, you guys are, oh, I'm so thankful for this, and everybody's nice and they love each other, and they're watching the games, and the next day they're out beating the living shit out of each other over a fucking $5 razor or electric razor or $100 broken TV. It's just insanity, people. It's a joke. We are a TV show for them. Um, the movie Ed, the movie with Jim Carrey, the Truman Show, things like that. You know, think of it that way. We are there, especially now that they're probably watching me through this camera. They can watch us through our cameras. They can see what we're doing. They can hear us through our phones. We are TV shows for them. Come to the same. Okay. Each honest perspective is valuable as no one has all the answers. All this information, of course, is available. Those that do, okay. Truth is very important for the future of humanity. No matter how initially uncomfortable or unacceptable that truth may be to our indoctrinated beliefs and belief systems that we've been born into, there are a lot of things that bother me when I hear them, even though I believe they bother me. I'll turn away, but in the end, I gotta go look just because it's uncomfortable. I can't just dismiss it, and you can't. Um, okay, yeah, uncomfortable or unacceptable truths that may be to our indoctrinated belief system that we've been born into. An incredible leap of the evolution of mankind potentially exists, and it truly does. For this reason, the deceptions perpetrated upon humanity must be exposed for the ultimate good of every being on this planet and not withheld to protect the self entitled few that benefit from the deceptions and who attempt to hide the truth. Now, there's a picture here, and these words are carved into stone at the Central Intelligence Agency headquarters. Truth and freedom are important to the evolution of every human being. And it says, and the truth, and ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. That is carved into the wall at the CIA headquarters. Deception creates illusion, which is a tool that can be used to manipulate the minds of the world, disempowering them from knowing the truth that is hidden behind the veils of secrecy. The authorities of those veils of secrecy have given in trust to those assigned to serve in the best interests of the people as a whole, and not the agenda of the private interests. Disclosure of the truth empowers mankind as a whole to evolve spiritually and technologically, unimpeded in the understanding of who we are in a relationship to the universe and ultimately to the power of consciousness within us all to transform the world in, yes, it sounds happy, but in a loving way. The world, there doesn't have to be good and bad. There doesn't have to be, sorry, good and evil. There doesn't have to be rich and poor. Everybody can be halves. Everybody can be equal. They just don't want that. The following people of the past understood the dangers of secrecy, which today hides the truth. Here's a quote from Harry Truman. He was also a racist. Stated a month after JFK's assassination. For those who don't know, he initially created the CIA. For some time, I've been disturbed by the way the CIA have been diverted from its original assignment. It has become an operational and at times policy-making arm of the government, and that it had become a government all of its own and all secret. They don't have to account to anybody. That's from Harry Truman, former president. Rear Admiral Roscoe Hillenkoetter, first director of the CIA and an MJ-12 member. I urge immediate congressional action to reduce the dangers from secrecy about unidentified flying objects. And the quote from JFK. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are as a people inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweigh the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions, and there's a very grave danger that an unannounced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning and to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that in my control. Obviously, he had no control over it. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion. I'm not asking for your newspapers to support the administration. I'm asking for your help in the tremendous task of informing and alerting the American people. For I have complete confidence in if only he knew what was going on now. For I have complete confidence in the response and dedication of our citizens when they are fully informed. And so it is the printing press, the recorder of man's deeds, the keeper of his conscience, the courier of his news, that we look to for strength and assistance, confident that with your help, man will be the man he was born to be, free and independent. That is not happening anymore at all in the press. And that sucks. That just sucks. Now, and I'm just partway down the first page of this stuff of Dan's. You've got to go to the webmatrix.net to check more. I'll be reading more and more, maybe a little bit every day. Okay, born to be free and independent. Without debate, without criticism, no administration, no country can succeed, and no republic can survive. That is why the Athenian lawmaker Solon decreed it a crime for any citizen to shrink from controversy, and that it is why our press was protected by the First Amendment, the only business in America specifically protected by the Constitution. not primarily to amuse and entertain, not to emphasize the trivial and sentimental, not to simply give the public what it wants, but to inform, to arouse, to reflect, to state our dangers and our opportunities, to indicate our crises and our choices, to lead, mold, educate, and sometimes even anger public opinion. That is what the press is supposed to be doing. And all we hear about is the Kardashians and non binary and pedophiles, and it's insane. Oh, and how Trump said grab him by the pussy. Look, if there was any evidence whatsoever against Donald Trump for any of these kind of acts, it would be out there. Do you not believe for 1 second the Democrats would have it plastered everywhere? All they have is rumor, conjecture, hearsay. He said this, so he meant this. Fuck off, Francine. Fuck off, all of you Democratic scumbags that are trying to keep everybody, especially the black people of America, down. A lot of them have woken up. I think it's Candace Wilson. They're attacking her now. She's a black woman. They're calling her racist. It's crazy. So I'm going to close with an Eisenhower quote here. We must guard against the acquisition and unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for a disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties. That word I don't like. Endanger our freedoms or democratic processes. We should take nothing for granted. Only an alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machinery of defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty or freedom may prosper together. Dwight D. Eisenhower. Now, they so were not into that Dwight wasn't aware at the time, I'm sure, that Roosevelt, Pearl Harbor, they started that. They brought us into the war. Roosevelt started getting everything ready. We'll send. Yeah, we're not sending our. Nobody from the States wanted the war. They were willing to ship armor and planes, boats, guns, all that stuff because it gave them jobs. So that's how it got started. People still didn't want to get into the war. Well, Churchill gets together with his crew. They all get together with Roosevelt and his crew, his warmongers. How can we get the Americans pissed off? Well, let's fuck with the Japanese for a little while, get them pissed off so that they come attack us. And we won't tell anybody. And that's what happened. That's what happened to Pearl Harbor. They knew hours in advance. Actually, they knew days, maybe even weeks in advance, that there was going to be an attack at Pearl Harbor because they instigated. That is a conspiracy. When two or more people get together to conspire against another set of people, to lie, to commit crimes, those are war crimes. These people should not be hailed as heroes. They should have been shot and pissed on. I'm Steve Crawford. This is Factor Theory Live. Have a good night, guys.